Hey, everybody, Merry Christmas, and thank you so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, we are joined by singer, songwriter, and worship leader Kim Walker Smith. Kim, it's Christmas week. Merry Christmas to
Thank
you.
you. Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. Do you have a Christmas wish or idea or thought you want to share with us since this is the big week?
You know, I I feel kind of bad saying this, but probably my biggest Christmas wish is just to take a really long nap and have like the laziest day. Like maybe I can just like lock myself in my bedroom and just have a
Love
day to
it.
myself. The kids just kind of,
Yeah,
maybe go find something to do for a while. That
I
sounds like a
hear
really
that.
good Christmas wish to me.
You know what? And all the moms out there are
Yeah.
hoping for the same thing, as it turns out, for their Christmas wish. I'm certain this year.
Yeah.
How old are your kids, by the way?
They are 9, 8, and 5.
Girl, yeah. Well, see, mine are 3 and 5, so at least
Yeah.
we know
Mhm.
what that's all about. It's a lot.
Yep.
There's a lot going on.
There's
At
there's
least,
a lot going on.
but
Yep.
your older kids, I assume at this point, and just give me some hope for the future, are maybe a little more like self-sufficient, so they're not like on top of you
They're
24/7.
they're getting there. The two oldest are boys, and so
Yeah.
they're getting more independent, but there is a little bit like they like mama to take care of
Oh,
them.
I
So
love that too. You know what's funny is I was out with some friends the other night, and this woman whose children went to the same school my kids do now, and mine are obviously very young, but hers are now graduated from college and whatever. And she was like, "Let me tell you, the one thing I wish I had done is let my kids sleep in bed with me more because I used to turn them away."
oh,
So this morning at 5:45, guess who walks in my room? My
mhm.
son. And he's
Yeah.
like, "Can I get in bed with you?" And I was normally I'd be like, "No, you got to go back upstairs until, whatever time." And I was like, "You know what? Yeah, you can get in bed with me." So I hear that. You want to keep them
Yeah.
close, especially the
Yeah.
boys. Yeah,
Yeah, for
it's the
sure.
best.
I've got one that same thing. He ends up getting in bed with me most mornings.
Oh,
He
see?
comes in and he's also like the cuddler. He just wants
Oh,
to cuddle, be really close. It's really sweet. I kind of
I
eat
know.
that up.
Well, because
I'm trying to hold on to that.
yeah, because one day they're not going to do that anymore. And then
Yeah.
that's when we'll really want it. And they'll be like,
Yeah.
whatever, like too cool for
Yeah.
you. It'll
Yeah.
probably happen next year for me. My kids will like out cool me at that point. Well, for our audience who isn't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, you have an incredible voice. I love the videos you post. They're very inspirational, but tell me about your background and kind of how you found yourself on a stage singing, to audiences that I'm sure you never even imagined and
Yeah.
speaking the good word.
Yeah. This is not at all what I thought I would be doing with my life. I kind of stumbled into this, and I really say in just my pursuit of God and like closer relationship with God, I just feel like God kind of led me into this. One of my favorite scriptures is in Proverbs, and it says that man makes his plans, but the Lord aligns his steps. And I kind of feel like that was my life. Like I kind of was making my plans and kind of deciding what I was going to do. And I was always really responsible. I always had a job. But he just kind of led me into worship leading and singing and all that I do. And I kind of opened my eyes one day and looked around and kind of went, how did I get here? And I came from a really musical family. Everyone sings in my family, and lots of people play instruments. It's just very commonplace in my family. And I didn't think that what I did was special at all. I didn't think I had a special voice. I didn't think there was really anything special about that talent or ability. My mom put me on a stage when I was 3. I grew up doing musical
Wow.
theater. But when I was in high school, my freshman year of high school, I was in the choir and I got in trouble and I got kicked out of choir. And then I
No.
actually was not ever allowed back in. So in high
Girl,
school,
what
I
you do
wasn't
in
actually,
choir? Okay.
I know, it's kind of funny. I wasn't actually allowed to be in there in high school. And my
Wow.
senior year of high school is when I got saved and I gave my life to God. And I decided I should go to a Christian college. And I went to a Christian college and I was just trying to make friends. And I thought, well, I can sing. So maybe I can audition for the worship team so that I can, have a way to kind of meet some friends and meet people. And I auditioned as a background singer and I did not make the team. And it's just the funniest thing to me. Every time I kind of tried to do anything with music on my own, it never worked. It always failed.
That's
And so
crazy.
I was actually working as a banker and processing loans. And when we started recording, and we started recording not for any other purpose except just to minister to a bunch of teenagers. And we were like 3 albums in when our pastor said, "When are you going to realize that God has called you into ministry?" And I said, "Gosh, that doesn't sound like something that would pay the bills. I don't think that's very
Wow.
responsible." And I got home and I felt like God said, "Am I your provider or is your job your provider?" And that really convicted me. And so I decided to take what felt like a huge leap of faith to me and really trust God. And I put in my notice at the bank and I went into ministry full time. And the rest is history. Here I am.
Wow. See, and now I thought with that story we were going to get into like a pitch perfect situation where you were like, yeah, I got to school and like I wanted to be part of, the team,
I
the singing
wish
club or whatever. And like, yeah, the rest is history.
I
But
was banned.
wow, that's so wild. And so like you resigned from your job, from a steady job, which I assume at that point
Yes.
perhaps was not very fulfilling to you, although it paid the bills.
I'm not a typical creative. I'm a little bit more of the math and science brain,
Oh,
and so
interesting.
I had fun with it. I wouldn't say I was necessarily fulfilled as like this is what I meant to do, but I was happy with my job, and I was really proud. I didn't finish college, and so I'd worked really hard and worked my way up in the bank, and so I felt like for someone who didn't finish college and who started at the bottom
Yeah,
and
you had
worked
a
their
good
way up,
gig.
yeah, I was really proud, like I was doing well and I was taking care of myself and I had my own place and it's like I'm doing it. I'm an official adult and doing well. And so it felt like a huge deal to walk away from that. But obviously I did walk into what was way more fulfilling and what was definitely what I am called and created to do. Just took me
Wow.
a little while to see that.
So when you left your job and you were like, I'm just going to fully dedicate myself to ministry, what happened from there? Like, is there a whole course on it, and then you go like, how does it work?
Well, it was we are me in particular, I'm kind of like the not the typical story. So to talk about that, I have to share a little bit about Jesus Culture, which is a group that
Yeah,
I've been a part of for 21 years now. And
nominated for a Grammy, by the way.
yeah,
Amazing.
we were not expecting that. That was really exciting, really fun for all of us, especially because again, we didn't set out to do any of this.
Yeah.
But I was volunteering in the youth group at our church, just in there just to help with teenagers. I was in my early 20s and just literally a volunteer. And they asked me if I would help with the worship team. And so me and another guy, Chris, we were helping with the worship team. And we did this summer youth conference and we named the youth conference Jesus Culture. And we noticed that all these teenagers would come and a lot of them were coming from homes where they weren't regular church attenders or anything like that. Some of them are hearing the gospel for the first time and we're just really introducing Jesus to these teenagers. And then they would go back home, but there would be nothing to encourage the relationship or encourage the growth. And they'd come back again the next summer and we kind of had to start all over again. And
Mm.
so we were like, what can we do to kind of help just get some growth happening with these teenagers? And we noticed that in worship that these were the moments that they were having the most powerful kind of moments and encounters with God was in the worship. And so we thought, well, what if we recorded the worship and they could have something tangible to take home and to listen and to keep engaging with God and something to just kind of maybe grow that relationship. So we had no money. It was basically like a hit the record button. It's pretty rough recording the very first one. And we put it out there. And these teenagers, I mean, exactly what we hoped would happen did. We started getting letters from parents saying, I don't know what's happened. My teenager comes home from school, goes in their room and turns on this CD, and they're asking me to take them to church. A lot of these teenagers ended up leading their parents to Christ through this. It was just
Wow.
really radical what happened. And so these teenagers, when they came back the next summer, we felt like we didn't lose that momentum from the previous summer and we were able to build and grow and it felt like we were actually discipling teenagers, like it wasn't just constantly introducing Christ to them but really discipling them. And then we thought, well, we should do this again, but this time let's film it and make a DVD. That would be fun, right? So we do that, we film it. And not long after it came out, my little brother, who was, I don't know, like 10 or 11 at the time, there's a pretty big age gap between us. He called me from Oregon, where I was raised, and he said, Sissy, you're on YouTube. And I said, what is YouTube?
Oh my God.
Because I didn't grow up with that. That was,
Yeah.
we didn't have that when I was a kid. And he tells me how to find YouTube and pull up the YouTube video of me singing this song, How He Loves. And at the time it had 22,000 views. Now it's like, I don't know how many millions of views now at this point,
Wow.
but I was freaking out and I said, what is this? And what is this number? And he said, this is all the people have seen this. And it went viral before viral was the word. This is so long ago, when that happened. And that's when everything took off. The music just went around the world. It was really very natural. We never really pushed for it. We never signed to a record label. Like, we started our own record label just to keep doing things our way. We partnered with other record labels to help get it out in other countries and things like that. But it was really just very kind of grassroots, kind of took off. And
I love it.
yeah.
I mean, that's the way. Whenever things I feel like are meant to be, so to speak, it shouldn't, sometimes it's just like, it's organic and it just happens. And that's amazing. And I also love that you sort of did this at a time where I feel like, certainly in our country, but perhaps in the world as a whole, do we ever need something like this? I mean, we need it now. Right. Yeah. Because I feel like you look around, especially you look around this country, and it feels like people are very disconnected from religion. You kind of look at the schools and they're taking it out totally, where this was a country founded upon religion and religious beliefs and values. And I feel like people are really yearning for something like this. They want to be led to Christ. They want to be led down a path that is fulfilling and wholesome and hopeful. And that's certainly, I think, what you're doing. And you're really leading people via singing initially, right? Which is so funny that you say, like, I didn't think I had a great voice. You're on your Instagram page. If people are not familiar, go check out Kim's Instagram page, because I got to tell you, you have this version of the Star Spangled Banner on there, and it's just you singing by yourself, and you probably just like went and did that like out in the backyard casual. I was like so mesmerized by how many times have I heard the Star Spangled Banner, had to watch the whole thing through, and then I just let it play again because it was so beautiful. And I mean, your voice it's powerful, it's beautiful, but you didn't even think that in the beginning. That's so funny to me.
Yeah. And that's funny. You bring that. That's a tradition. I do that every 4th of July. And I go outside and I sing it as loud as I can. And I've always lived on a farm. And every now and then I will hear out in the distance when I'm done singing from other farms, people, woo! They can hear my voice echoing across.
Awesome.
And it's just I come from a very patriotic family. I love my country. 4th of July is my favorite holiday. Yes. So it's just a fun thing I do every year. And it's funny because when I put it up, I'll have people say, oh, I look forward to this every 4th of July to find your video.
Well, now I know, Kim. Now I'm going to be tuning in on the 4th of July to see the post. And by the way, I love the 4th of July too, but here's the funniest thing. So my husband and I, obviously, we love this country. We're very patriotic. But prior to my father-in-law ever getting involved in politics, we got engaged on the 4th of July. Is that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really romantic.
Like, who would have thought? I had nothing to do with it. I'm giving him all the credit. But like before, politics was ever a thing for our family or anything, like that was the date my husband was like, you know what? This seems like a good one to do. And so I love it too. I don't think there's anything cooler than celebrating and championing the greatest country on the face of the earth, being proud of who we are, and really celebrating a country that is unlike any other country, that gives people opportunities and freedoms unlike anywhere else in the world. I'm all about that. I think it's so cool. So now I know. Now I'm tuning in. So no pressure.
Yep. I love it.
I
is
feel
my
like
favorite.
I'm gonna be sharing that one certainly whenever the time comes and we're ready for the next rendition of it. But speaking of husbands and all that, I heard this story about you and your husband that you grew up in the same town, but
Yeah.
you didn't realize until well after you were kind of grown up and all that that there was even a connection between the two of you.
Yeah, I actually, as a kid, I had a crush on him, and he was
Oh.
like all the other farm boys in my farm town, which was all they cared about was being outside and dirt. So he was not interested in talking to girls or dating or anything. And I tried to get him to talk to me all the time, and I could not get him to talk to me. And my mom married this man who's a Christian, and he got us going to this church, and it happened to be the church that him and his parents went to, and I was so excited because I was like, this is my chance. And I would literally corner him, just trying to get him to talk to me, and he just wouldn't. And I told my mom, if he would just talk to me, he would want to marry me. And my mom
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
it doesn't work like that. Like, he's just going to talk to you and want to marry you. But I was so convinced.
You're like,
And he
yeah.
ended up graduating 2 years before I did. And it was kind of like, well, that's that. I mean, I tried and I tried for years, and then he'd graduate and he'd moved away. And 10 years later, I ran into him at a conference that I was doing the worship at. We had a mutual friend who we both ended up out to lunch with this friend and instantly recognized each other. And we had that conversation finally. And he didn't tell me this at the time, but in the moment when we're just talking, like, it was like, what have you been doing the last 10 years, basically? And he knew he was going to marry me just in that moment. He just knew it. And
See?
when I found that out later, I of course told my mom, I was right. I knew it. I called it the whole
Wow.
time, one conversation. And we actually have a fireworks kind of Fourth of July story in our story as well. The previous, go back a full year, Fourth of July. I'm sitting with all of my married friends. I had a huge Fourth of July party every year, and I looked around and they're all cuddled up watching the fireworks, and I was the single woman amongst all my married friends. And I just said, God, I'm really happy with my life. I'm really thankful, but I would love someone to share moments like this with. And I really felt like God spoke to me and said, the next time you watch the fireworks, you won't be watching them alone. And when you feel like you hear God, be like, is that God? Is that me? I don't know. But I was holding on to it. And we get to the next 4th of July. I got food poisoning. I got
Oh.
sick. I was laying on my couch. I had to cancel my party,
Oh
and I was alone.
no.
So I wasn't dating anyone. I was just alone, sick. And I turned on the news, and we had all these forest fires. I was living in California at the time, and they canceled our 4th of July fireworks because of all the smoke. And that following September was when I ran into Skylar. In October, he came to visit me in California, and we ran into my sister at this pumpkin patch thing. And in October is
Mhm.
October 18th, and my sister said, "Hey, are you going to go watch the fireworks tonight?" And I said, "What fireworks?" And she said, "They're finally redoing our 4th of July fireworks." And
Oh
I was
my
like, "Oh my gosh,
gosh.
we got to get down there." So we go down there, we find our spot. Dark comes, they start shooting off the fireworks, and all of a sudden I felt God speak to my heart and say, "Do you remember what I told you?"
There it
And he didn't
is.
say 4th of July. He said, "The next time you watch the fireworks, you won't
Oh
be
my
watching them
God.
alone."
I have
And there I
chills. This
was
is so
watching with Skylar.
crazy.
Is that crazy? In
Oh,
October of all the time. So that's my special story. We got married just in May, the very next year. So yeah, we're still
wow.
15 years now.
See, I love that. And it actually kind of goes to it's a good lesson, I think, for all of us too, which is that, sometimes things happen in God's time and He's the
Yeah.
one who kind of dictates when they happen for us. And you have to be patient. It's hard sometimes, and you're like, man, I'm back at the 4th of July, but there were
Yeah.
no fireworks. That is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
wild. I
Isn't that
love it.
wild?
That's
Yeah.
so cool. Well,
One of
now
my God
and
stories.
now you have three kids together and
Yeah.
like I mean, that it's so great. Tell me about being a mom though right now because I got to tell you, for me and I think for a lot of parents out there, it's a tough time to be a parent. There's so much. There's just
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much that I want to protect my kids from, and obviously they are young. But like, how do you manage it? What is it that you've done that you think has been successful? Any advice for other parents out
Yeah.
there?
You know, I'm homeschooling my kids. I've been doing that from the beginning, and that's just kind of what I chose to do. I never thought I would love that, and I actually do really love it. It's a bit of a challenge to work around schedules because I
Yeah.
am also a working mom. But the great thing with homeschool is that you don't actually need as many hours in a day as what they would be, if they're actually going to school.
Mm-hmm.
My kids are all really smart. They're doing really great with that. But I've shared those same concerns. The feeling of wanting to protect them, really concerned
Yeah.
about what's happening in the world. But I realized one day I'm not doing them any favors by trying to shield them all the time. I will shield them, and I want them to stay young and somewhat naive for quite a while. I want them. They're gonna have to grow up at some point, but for now, they just need to be kids and not have
Right.
worries and concerns. But I also am thinking about I'm raising leaders and I'm preparing them. It is my job as a parent to prepare them for the world that they've been born into. And without all the crazy stuff that's in our world, if you look at it, for me, I'm looking at it from a biblical perspective. And the Bible is pretty clear about we're kind of born into a war between principalities and powers, darkness and light. And until Jesus comes back, whatever it looks like, whatever it is, until that time, this is kind of how it is. And the word says that our battles are not against people, but against those things, the darkness. And so I have to be having this in mind that they've kind of been born into this, and I have to kind of raise up little warriors. They got to know how to pray. They got to know how to read their Bible. They got to know how to walk in kindness and love, even when that's not being given to them. They got to know how to find Jesus in a world that sometimes it might be tough to hear him, to find him, to see him, to know him. And so this is what I try to keep in my mind. I'm just trying to point them constantly towards Jesus. Here at home and in our lives, we pray together, we read our Bible together. I talk to them about, when things are hard, and I don't really hide my feelings around them. If something is bothering me, and we'll talk about it as a family. If something makes me sad, we talk about it. I don't know how to do it perfect. My kids are still young. I feel like I'm still learning. But this is something that I'm holding on to, is that I'm raising leaders and warriors, and I want them to be strong, and I want them to know they don't have to know the answers, but they can turn to the one who does have the answers. And if I can teach them to do that, then I think we're winning. So
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. And I mean, kudos to you for homeschooling. And obviously, you've been doing it for a long time, but you kind of
yeah.
look at where things went during COVID.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, there are so many parents, Kim, who were like, that's it. I can't continue to put my kids in a situation like they've been put in these public
Right.
schools, even in private schools. I mean, there, and so many parents now are homeschooling. Do you hear from people on that?
I do. Yeah. I mean, especially a lot of parents who are like me, like working parents and going,
Yeah.
how do I work and homeschool? Like, how do we balance that and juggle that? But I was in California. We live in Montana now, but I was in California when COVID hit. And I think one of the good things that came out of that was that so many parents were exposed to what was
Yes,
happening in their schools and what was being
absolutely.
taught. And,
Hmm.
everyone around the country was waking up to what's being taught. But in California, we were actually dealing with that already for quite a while. A lot of the
Wow.
different things that people are really upset about, and which was actually why I elected to homeschool to begin with. So I think that was actually the blessing in disguise that came out of that, was it just really opened a lot of parents' eyes to what was being taught to their children. And for the parents who have chosen to homeschool, I know it's not easy, but I think it's worth it, and I think it can be done. And I feel like there's actually some really great treasures that can come out of that, and just learning with your kids and doing it with them. I did not think I was qualified. I did not think I could do it, and I've come into it with a lot of humility, and just
Yeah.
going. We're learning together. We're in this together. Some days I have to say to them, "You guys got to give Mama some grace. I'm just figuring this out too."
Yeah, I'm learning alongside you. I mean, it's such a great concept. First of all, I think all the time about the fact that, now my kids are at an age where, I mean, they're in preschool, but I drop them off at school at 8 o'clock in the morning. I pick them up at like 2:15, 2:30. And, they're gone for most of the day. Obviously the afternoons and nights and
Yeah.
mornings they're with me. But I mean, that's it. And then they're in school, and then, they like after that, they either go to college or go out in the world on their own. And it's probably such a blessing to be able to spend all of that time with
Yeah.
your kids. And I imagine that when your kids grow up to become adults themselves, they're going to look back on that and cherish that experience. And I imagine you're going to be so close as a family as a result of that, which I love. I think that's incredible.
I mean, that is definitely the hope. That's
Yeah.
we definitely get to put a lot into relationship, a lot of time together. But I will say, I do love like when I do leave to go work, weekends when I go out to do church or events and conferences, whatever it is, it's really refreshing to me. Like I get a little break, I get away, I get some me time, and I get to do something I love to do beyond just being with my family, because of course I love that,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's
We
really
all need a
refreshing.
break.
Yes, exactly. We all need a break. So I do. I love what we're building here at home, and I love the depth of relationship because of all the time that we have together. But I'm also really thankful for those times that I get to go out and do
Yes,
the other
girl.
things that I love. It's
A,
refreshing.
a
So,
good a good hotel sleep for a mom every now and again
oh
is
yeah,
nothing to sneeze
it
at. That's a
it's
necessity, I
gold.
feel like.
It is gold. Yep.
Like as dark as I can get it. No, it's kind of crazy because there's this weird thing that I feel like just naturally happens. It's innate that once you have kids, I'm the lightest sleeper in the world. My husband, I
Yes.
mean, a dump truck could drive over him and he
Oh
wouldn't wake
yeah.
up. I'll hear my son has this little like monkey that's got like a
Yep.
jingle in it. I can hear it on the other side of my house and I'm like, he's up. What's going on? Out of a dead sleep, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So when I'm at a hotel, it's like naturally I know nobody's there. I don't need to worry about anything. No dogs, no kids.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm really sleeping. Like that's
Oh
when I
yeah, I'm
do it.
always like, put me in the quietest spot in the hotel, and
Yeah.
I'll put, I'll unplug the alarm clock or like any light, and even
Yes,
the littlest
exactly.
bit. Like I just want it so dark and so quiet. Yeah, and
I hear
super
that.
cold. I mean, I crank the
Yes.
AC like way
Thank you. But
down.
I can never
Super
get it as
cold.
cold in a hotel room as I want. See, now where you live, you just crack the windows open and you're good
Right.
to go. I moved down to Florida and I mean, my thermostat, I'm like, I cannot get this thing cold enough.
Yeah.
In my house, I'm good, but I'm telling you what, you go to these hotels, I feel like they have some monitor on the AC and
They
they're not
do.
letting us
Some
get it
do.
cold.
Yes,
See,
some actually do. They really do.
I
And
knew
it's
it.
that those are sad days.
It's so sad. All we want is a good cold sleep. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, tell us, Kim, what can we expect? Anything coming in the near future from you? New album? What's in the works?
We got a couple things. I'm just working on some writing right now. This is kind of I'm one of those weird artists. I don't like to put out an album like every single year. I'm like I gotta live some life and have a story to tell, and then I'll put
Yeah.
something out. So, I'm just getting in that now. I'm picking back up into writing again, and I'm really I kind of decided this time, I'm going to just write and let's see what comes out. I'm not going to put these kind of parameters on myself that it has to be a specific kind of worship song. Because I'm kind of like, well, I mean, I'm a songwriter. I can write songs other than just worship songs. So I kind of want to see
Let it
what will come
flow.
out, what I can do. So I'm
Yeah.
just kind of allowing myself to get a little more creative. And then also, my husband and I are really excited about some things that we're building up here in Montana. We're looking towards starting a worship school where I've always
Oh,
been really into mentoring. I've been doing mentoring for a really long time, and I love to do that. And so we actually kind of want to set something up, like have something in place and a place to gather people who want to learn and to grow in worship leading, like I have done. So yeah,
so
looking
cool.
forward to
I
it.
love it. So you're saying that you got a lot going on and we're going to need some good hotel sleeps for you. I got it.
Yeah.
And we
Yep,
love that.
exactly.
We
Yep.
love that. Well, Kim Walker Smith, thank you for joining us here on The Right View. Merry Christmas. I hope you have an amazing
You.
Christmas, a happy new year, 2023. It feels like every time we get to, this portion of the year, there's a lot of excitement and hope for a new year, a fresh start for people who maybe, you know, haven't had the greatest 2022. We got a new year coming up. Although let's hope that we get to 2024 sooner rather than later for a lot of reasons, Kim.
Yes,
you know what I mean? But thank you for joining us. Keep up the awesome work. And to everybody at home, as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time for more.